the Iowa caucuses that go down today.
Yeah.
This is another, in my judgment, ridiculous part of the American electoral process. It's not even really a secret ballot. You have to, you essentially horse trade in gymnasiums and churches, et cetera. I wonder if you can give me a note on that. I don't see it important per se, but maybe you can tell me, it seems a bit of a foregone conclusion, but I guess money and these other things and maybe a bump can help certain candidates going into New Hampshire. How do you see it?
I don't really know enough about it, I'll be honest with you, but I was looking at some of the data this morning, and I see that Donald Trump is still holding 48% of the vote, and it means that despite what do you have to do to have shame fall upon you in this country, right? What do you have to do if it's not paying off a porn star or stealing classified documents or overturning an election or causing a coup against your own country or all of the above and more? Nope, still the most popular guy in the country. And it is remarkable to me that this kind of concept that you might be somebody who is substandard is just not enough to change people's views. In fact, I reposted a TikTok video this morning on Twitter or whatever it's called of one of these Trump gatherings, and the interviewer was asking these people, would you prefer a dictator like Donald Trump being a dictator or Joe Biden next 4 years? And they asked 12 different people in this video, and they were all like, we'd rather choose Donald Trump being a dictator than Joe Biden. And I was like, wow, either they don't really understand the ramifications of dictatorship, or the cult is strong with this one.
I think it really is, on some level, the former. I don't think people know what dictatorship, I don't think they understand what it's like to have, all their rights taken away. And you can talk about rights compromised under whatever, the big hand of government. But I think Americans are fat and happy, frankly. Europe, you really beat back fascism. And when I say you, I get it. It was a while ago. But I don't know if we have the cultural sense and the cultural memory, certainly we don't have, of what fascism is, authoritarianism really is.
I think that there are reminders all over Europe, not just memorials, but, in London, bomb sites where you had a row of Victorian houses, and then in the middle you'd have a new build, or a house that was built, say, in the 60s or 70s. And you'd be like, oh, well, obviously that's where a doodlebug landed, and instead of building it in the old Victorian style, they didn't have any money, so they did the best they could. The daily reminders that the city, the Blitz lasted 2 years of just constant carpet bombing of the city, and St. Paul's Cathedral still stands. So, yeah, it's one of those things, you don't know what you've got till you lose it, right? And my worry is that the Americans who don't understand will really be concerned when they lose it.
The comment comes in on Milosevic, which is really a good point. It wasn't all that long ago. Yeah. We've seen it. I feel like, and then I'll move on, but just to button this point out, because it is odd. I feel as though Americans look at this authoritarianism and these governments in which there are really no civil rights for many as sort of a spectator sport kind of way they see it.
It could never happen to us.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's because Donald Trump befriended the great dictators, right? So, whereas before we saw Putin, Xi Jinping, and Kim Jong, and Viktor Orban, and Erdogan, we saw these people as foes under any other administration. But Trump talked about them so fondly and said he was great friends with them, and gave them CDs of Elton John, and had this weird kind of bromance with these characters. And so it diluted that sense that they might be a foe. And that is my concern, is that, there are some real enemies to the United States around the world. Donald Trump chose to reverse it. There's a situation going on, which I think we're probably about to talk about, where Europe is having to prepare for the fact that Trump claimed that America would not be there for Europe in the event of war under his watch. Well, that is Putin talking. That is Trump parroting and being a mouthpiece for Vladimir Putin. He has already been compromised. You know, the genie is already out the bottle, Mark. This is the concern. So the fear of dictatorship is not just what will happen to the US and what kind of rights you might lose, like the right to vote, but the fact that the rest of the world now has become, or will become, if Trump is re-elected, completely unsafe because the US will be on the same side as the former foes of the United States.
Yeah,
it's
well
terrifying.
Said. Yeah, well said. And this, as you've suggested, has been expressed by members of the European community.
Right.
You've got the European Union's internal market chief, this Thierry Breton, saying that Trump told the European Commission president, if Europe is under attack, we will never come to help you and to support you.
Yeah.
It was really a reflection of something that a point he made early on in his presidency, which is essentially America's tired of carrying the water for NATO. NATO is something that should be done away with. He expressed these views. It's interesting how he sees post-World War II Europe and how he sees changing alliances. It's really all about money. Trump made it all about money.
And also who likes him and who doesn't like him. And, you know, if he is not jiving with Angela Merkel, who's obviously now been replaced, but you remember there was that very awkward moment in the White House where she's sitting in one chair, he's in the other. He refused to shake hands with her. She's like got a face like thunder and just can't believe it. He is like doing the, you know, staring evils down the lens. I mean, the people that he was supposed to be friends with, I mean, in England, we call it the special relationship. I don't know if you've heard that phrase before, but it's something they talk about all the time in the UK. The special relationship between the UK and the United States. And that was something that was born out of, I think, Reagan and who was Margaret Thatcher. Together, they kind of had a special relationship. But I think it started even longer before that. And so you'll hear our Prime Minister in the UK talking all the time about the special relationship. And since I moved to the US and I started asking people, do you know about this special relationship? I mean, it sounds like an affair or something, doesn't it? You know, like the UK is a mistress. Maybe it is. But no one knew what I was talking about. And this is very interesting, is that the perspective of the US's relationship with the UK and consequently the rest of Europe and NATO and, you know, member countries is that there is this special relationship, and the Yanks don't know anything about it. It's fascinating to me.
Well, it exists on another level diplomatically. I think there's a sort of relationship and connectivity on a diplomatic level that you don't find getting down to,
yeah,
you know,
it's
man
born
on the
out of the
street.
Second World War. It's born out
Right.
of the fact that the Americans, you know, were eventually able to join the war effort and you know, defeat the Nazis.
Well,
And-
I'd love to someday talk about another day, talk
Yeah.
about what happened after World War II. I mean, the Russians were allies in World War II. It's a weird relationship that pivoted almost immediately, and they became the Soviet Union, and we became, you know, embroiled in a Cold War for decades. The point you were making about essentially the relationship between Trump and Europe is an important one, and I wonder if he'll make it again on the stump at any point. He embraces those things that are controversial, you know. The gotcha moments, Trump turns somehow into, no, I stand by that, you know.
Well, he doesn't have the intellect to understand about long-term relationships and diplomacy, right? So to him, it's all about short-term. You wronged me. I didn't like the way you treated me. That's why he says, oh, you know, I went to Kim Jong, I went to North Korea, and they treated me so well. It's like, well, what do you think? What do you expect? What are they going to do? Like, poke you with a sharp stick? I mean, this is what is so insane about having a man who is mentally unwell being in the most powerful seat in the world. I mean, it should never have happened the first time. He is too unwell, too compromised. Aside from the personality disorder, there's a whole bunch of things wrong with him. And, you know, there should be a mental test for presidents, for candidates, because he would never have passed.
There would be, I would suggest, I love that you mentioned how compromised he was. Yeah. I was talking about that in the ramp up to the election before 2016. But I also think that his compromise, as you suggest, goes across all different aspects of who he is, from his psychology, but more to the point, he couldn't pass a background check. I mean, this is a guy who would never pass a background check. His family didn't pass a background check. As you know, he bigfooted to get them security clearance. And then this guy who could never have passed a background check, takes truckloads of classified documents and stashes them in the bathroom and ballroom and the bedroom at Mar-a-Lago. So on trade, Europe is trying to reduce its dependencies on single nations generally, but it's disengaging in the with the relationship that you talk about.
Well, it's stockpiling weapons. I mean, this is what it's going to have to do. Instead of relying on the United States as it has done, for a few generations now, it's going to have to stockpile its own weapons and operate in an isolationist fashion. It's terrifying to me, the idea that this would happen and that one man and his ego and his narcissism is the cause of all of this. But, here we are. And the problem is, fascist dictators, they get voted in legitimately. They tend not to take over power. They tend to get voted in and then they really unleash their power. And that is my concern, is that, Trump could win. Aside from the Iowa caucus, he is still the most popular of the primary candidates. No one comes close. And anyway, Trump policies are Nikki Haley policies. Trump policies are DeSantis policies. So,
well, the only thing that he has that they do not, I'd suggest, is maybe several things, but charisma. I mean, the man is charismatic. He plays to the room. His ugliness is the same ugliness that reflects. He hates the same things that a lot of his constituency hates. I want to, before I lose you, ask you about immigration. This is a problem that is, obviously played for politics in this country. That's why neither party is able to, I think, really be committed to it. Although during Obama, there was real bipartisan legislation that was then scuttled by the GOP. But anyway, Texas officials, as the headline, block U.S. border agents from helping 3 drowning migrants. This is, again, something that happened over the weekend. 3 people, including 2 children who were seeking asylum in the U.S., drowned while trying to reach the U.S. near the border city of Eagle Pass. Texas has begun denying access to Border Patrol agents in this area. I mean, I can go on. It's a tragic story.
They're trying to make the problem worse.
Right.
They want to make the problem worse in this period leading up to the election. Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, again, far-right Christian nationalist insurrectionist, admitted today that they will not get a deal on immigration and the border whilst Joe Biden is president. He said, until Donald Trump is elected president, there will be no deal. Because, as you know, money for Ukraine is tied up with, and money for Gaza is also tied up with money for the border. And, that is really Mike Johnson representing the Republican Party, really nailing his colors to the mast. They don't want to fix this problem. They just want it to get worse. And look, Greg Abbott is, he's just Trump on wheels, right? He is the most offensive, racist, and terrible person. And so, they don't care for migrants, because they have the wrong skin color, they're the wrong religion, they're, anything that doesn't match that kind of perfect white, Aryan, Christian, Republican image is to them a second-rate citizen, or immigrant in this case. Yeah, and that's the tragedy. This all goes back to racism.
Well, and of course, Abbott's the governor in Texas, of course. And he, in doing this, you're right, he's elevated this to a point where it may be an issue. And, you've got federal agents being denied entry into an area where they're supposed to be helping out at the border. Now, all of this said, Anthony, I know we've got to finish up here, but we do have a problem with immigration. We have a border that's porous, and it is creating issues, particularly
as do most countries. Most countries do.
Okay, fair enough. I just don't know, how communities that are suffering with the constant flow of immigrants who are fleeing these awful conditions. You've just seen what happened in Ecuador. It's Central America is really the primary flow of immigrants on our southern border, and it continues. What do we do?
Take them in. Take them all in. There's room for all of them. Put them to work. This is the thing, isn't it? It's like the elephant in the room that nobody will talk about, right? Obviously, everybody wants to manage immigration. immigration in the US is very, very strict. And I speak as an immigrant, right? It's very, very strict. I still have to wait 6 years before I can apply for citizenship as a legal immigrant. And yet, there is this, what undermines the whole debate is xenophobia and racism. So it's never a true conversation about immigration. I mean, under Biden and Alexander Mayorkas, they have increased the number of arrests, like to such an extent that they opened 3 border crossings last week, like reopened them. They're arresting more people than ever. They have more technology than ever that Mexico is now paying for. The wall didn't work, as we know. We've seen people cutting through it, climbing over it, climbing through it. I mean, that was just a joke. It was just symbolic. And so the whole thing is just steeped in Republican hatred of the black and brown-skinned person.
Let me ask you, Anthony, let me push back a little bit and say, you can't just open your border and in this continuous stream of people be integrated into your society in any kind of way that's going to be workable. You just can't do it.
You do it in the way that they are doing it, which is in an intelligent and kind of in a fashion that sticks to the law, right? And so, there is a myth that Democrats just want to let everybody in and Republicans want to close the border. And it's not as simple as that. They actually both want the same thing. Right. You need migration. You need people to come into the country and invest in the economy. You need all of that. Every country needs that because people leave the US. So, you've got to find that happy medium. But it's just been weaponized as a kind of racist conversation. And the reality is that there is room for people. And that if states, Republican states especially, were as generous as Democrat states, then you would be able to, bring these people in and really put them to work and give them shelter. And, there is room. It's the richest country in the world, for goodness sake.
Sure.
It's like we profit from healthcare in this country. There is room, there is money, there is funding. But it's a fake conversation that goes on in Congress. And all this stuff with like Ted Cruz, they haven't been to the border, I've been to the border. Who cares? It's got nothing to do with the photo op. The reality is you need steady migration, you need to manage it properly, and you need to stop referring to humans as vermin.
Well, you need to get Mexico to pay for that wall. I mean, that's the, they got to get Trump back because he could finish the job he started, with getting Mexico to cut that check. Anthony Davis, I'm glad you're rallying. I'd love to see more of you. I love our conversation. So congratulations on the upgrade to the 5-Minute News.
Thank you.
As a Midas Touch host. And you're still doing your Thursday show, and you do the weekend show as well, correct?
I have the Wednesday show, which is called Uncovered.
Wednesday, sorry.
And that's okay. It's you're only one day off. And I actually guessed with my wife this morning. I guessed what percentage of the planet is water. And I guessed 70%. It was just a guess. And then I asked the smart speaker, and the smart speaker said 71%. And I was like,
wow.
This is such a great game.
Wow.
So you are only 1 day away, and I think that that's
thank you.
Close
Thank you
enough.
very much.
And then on Sunday we have the weekend show, and in fact on this show just gone on Sunday, we took apart Project 2025.
Oh, wow.
Myself and Alan Piper, we just disseminated it, and we literally went through it page by page. It's a 90-minute episode, but definitely worthy of a
I'll
watch.
check that out, and I'd love to talk to you. Maybe next week you can come back and actually
Yes,
take
of
us through
course.
just maybe some of the highlights. That would really be great. That's for those who don't know, that's essentially the plan for the second Trump presidency.
Yeah, so the Republican plan to deconstruct the state, effectively, to break down the civil service, to fire 50,000 people, and then employ loyalists in the public sector.
It's real. It's real. Thank you, Anthony Davis. We look forward to our next visit. Take him out with some... I know, we can't resist it, can we? It embarrasses him. It's disgusting, really, when I think about it. But you are my favorite Britisher, and so you have to live with the music. I'm sorry.
I'm down.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.